He came to help with groceries and didn't leave that night. My husband was working late, the bags were heavy, and I was in a loose tee that barely covered my thighs. I never meant for anything to happen, but when our hands brushed over the milk carton, something changed. Something I can't take back. My name is Laura. I'm 44 years old, and for the past 19 years, I've been married to a man I used to believe was the love of my life. We live in a modest colonial outside Indianapolis. The kind with the peeling shutters and a swing that still creaks from when the kids were small. Our 2 boys are off at college now, one in Michigan, one in Oregon. The house feels too big without them. Too quiet. And lately, I've realized that silence can be its own kind of scream. Doug, my husband, is a good man. A hard worker. A provider. But somewhere along the way, between promotions, late meetings, and his obsession with golf, I started feeling more like a roommate than a wife. He's always tired. Always somewhere else. Emotionally, I mean. I could walk into the room wearing nothing but his old jersey and he wouldn't look up from his phone. I used to try. I really did. Fancy dinners. Little notes. Perfume he used to like. But after a while, you stop setting the table for someone who eats standing up over the sink. I wasn't looking for anything. Not really. But I think I was hungry for something. For someone to notice me. I met Caleb on a Tuesday. He lived 4 houses down, moved in just after New Year's. I only knew his name because it was written in Sharpie on the Amazon boxes I kept seeing stacked outside his door. He looked about 10 years younger than me, tall, lean, with that quiet confidence some men just carry. I was juggling a bag of frozen peas, 2 gallons of milk, and my purse when I heard "need a hand" from behind me. I turned, startled. There he was, Caleb, holding out an arm, that easy grin on his face. He wore a black Henley with sleeves pushed up, forearms smudged with what looked like grease. His truck was idling at the curb. I said yes, half laughing, embarrassed. He followed me to the kitchen, set the bags down, and glanced around like he didn't want to leave yet. "You've got a great house," he said, leaning back against the counter. I noticed the way his eyes didn't wander, not to the sink full of dishes or the stack of unopened mail, but straight to me, like I was the part worth noticing. I smiled. "It's lived in." He chuckled. "That's the best kind." That should have been the end of it. But it wasn't. He started showing up more after that. Not in a creepy way, just casual. Like he was always outside at the right time. Taking out trash when I pulled in from Target. Washing his car when I was watering the hydrangeas. We'd talk. Just neighbor things at first. The weather. Trash pickup delays. But then it shifted. One Saturday, he was walking his dog, an old golden retriever named Rudy, when he stopped in front of my porch. Doug had left early for a weekend conference. It was just me and an open bottle of wine. "You look like you could use company," he said. Not a question. "I'm fine," I said, but I didn't mean it. Not really. He sat anyway. Rudy curled at his feet like he'd done it 100 times. Caleb handed me a second glass. He'd brought his own bottle. "Cabernet," he offered. I nodded. And that was the beginning. We talked for hours that night. About his move from Colorado. His ex. How he never wanted to get married again. He said it like a confession, not a complaint. I told him about the boys. About how the house echoes now. About the way Doug snores through our anniversary dinner and forgets to hold my hand in public. I don't know why I told him those things. Maybe because he listened. Really listened. He watched me when I spoke. Not in that usual way men do. Not just because I was a woman and he was bored, but like my words had weight. Like he could feel them in his chest. And I watched him, too. I noticed the way he leaned forward when I laughed. The way his jaw tensed when I mentioned Doug. The way he didn't move away when our legs brushed on the porch swing. Nothing happened that night. But something did. The groceries came again a week later. Another lonely evening, another heavy trunk. Doug was late, again. Caleb saw me struggling and offered to help, again. He followed me inside, no questions this time. Just an ease to the way he moved through my kitchen now. like it was familiar, like he belonged. I handed him the bag with the eggs and smiled without meaning to. "What?" he asked. "Nothing," I said. "You're just good at this." He took a step closer. "At groceries?" "At helping." He didn't answer, just watched me. The silence between us grew thick, warm, electric. I turned to grab a box of cereal and bumped into him instead. My breath caught. His hands were on my arms, steadying me. And then they didn't move. We stood like that, close enough to feel each other breathe. I should have stepped back, said something light, broken the moment. But I didn't. "I should go," he said, his voice low, hoarse. "Okay," I whispered. But neither of us moved. That's when I heard Doug's text buzz on the counter. "Running late. Don't wait up." Caleb saw it. So did I. And that was the moment I made the first real choice. "I made too much pasta," I said quietly without looking at him. "You hungry?" He didn't answer. He just stayed. The next morning, my kitchen still smelled faintly of basil and something I couldn't name, something warm, like closeness. Like him. Caleb's coffee cup was in the sink. His jacket was draped over one of the dining chairs. The screen door was slightly cracked, like he'd slipped out quietly, not wanting to wake me. And maybe I should have felt shame. Maybe I should have cried or rushed to clean up the trail of him left behind. But I didn't. I just stood there, barefoot on cold tile, fingers grazing the rim of the cup he'd used, his scent still on it. On me. Doug didn't come home until well after midnight. He climbed into bed without saying a word, smelled like hotel soap and airport gin. He never asked if I'd eaten. Never asked why I was still awake. I lay beside him, staring at the ceiling, heart racing not from guilt, but from the fact that I felt nothing at all. That scared me more than the betrayal itself. Because the truth was, the betrayal didn't feel like a mistake. It felt like oxygen. The days that followed weren't wild or messy. They were quiet, controlled, like two people playing with fire, but pretending it was just a candle. Caleb and I never spoke about what happened that night. But something changed. The space between us always felt charged now. We didn't touch again, not right away, but we hovered on the edge of it. A glance too long, a hand that lingered as we passed a plate. The way he'd murmur, "I was thinking about you this morning," as he picked up the recycling bin. I told myself it was nothing. I told myself I was being foolish, selfish, childish. But then came the Thursday I'll never forget. Doug had flown to Denver for a leadership conference. 3 days, 3 nights. That first night, I told Caleb not to come by, that I had a migraine, that I needed space. He didn't argue. He just said, "I get it. But if you need anything, you know where I am." And I did. I knew exactly where he was. I made it until midnight before walking out the front door in nothing but my robe and slippers. The grass was damp. My pulse was louder than my footsteps. His porch light was still on. He didn't look surprised when he opened the door. Didn't say a word. Just stepped aside to let me in. We didn't make love. We didn't even kiss. But we crossed a line we couldn't uncross again. Because intimacy doesn't need a bed. It can live in quiet looks, shared silences, the way he wiped my tears before I even knew I was crying. We fell asleep on his couch, his arms around me, his hand over mine like a promise. He didn't ask me to stay. He didn't have to. I didn't go home until sunrise. I walked through my own front door like a stranger. And in the mirror, I saw someone I hadn't seen in years. Doug came home Sunday evening cheerful, tan, talking about some new merger he was excited about. He kissed my cheek like a man checking a box. "I saw Caleb's truck parked outside this weekend," he said casually over dinner. "He's around a lot these days." My heart paused mid-beat. "Yeah, he's been helping with things." Doug nodded, chewing slowly. "Seems helpful." There was something strange in his voice. Something unreadable. But I didn't press. The next morning, he left earlier than usual. Said he had a bored breakfast. I barely heard him. I was watching the window. Caleb was in his driveway, stretching before a run. Shirtless. He caught me watching. Smiled. And that smile, that damn smile, was the beginning of the end. 2 days later, Doug came home early, unannounced. I was on the porch swing. Caleb had just walked back to his house. Nothing happened. Not then, but our closeness was obvious. Too casual. Too warm. Doug stood in the doorway, arms crossed, just watching me. "You look happy," he said. It wasn't a compliment. That night, I found his phone face down on the nightstand. Unusual. Doug was the kind of man who always needed to be reachable. I didn't look through it. I didn't have to. Because the next morning, Caleb wasn't on his porch. His truck was gone. No note. No text. I waited. A day. 2. 5. Then it hit me. Doug knew. And he didn't confront me. He outplayed me. He'd said something. Threatened something. Or maybe he offered Caleb money, I'll never know. All I know is that Caleb left without a word. And Doug never said a thing. He started treating me better. Bringing flowers. Taking me out. Complimenting my dresses. I should have been grateful. But it wasn't love. It was victory. And I was the trophy he refused to lose. Last week, I found something in the drawer under Doug's side of the bed. A printed transcript. Of every text I ever sent Caleb. Time-stamped. Highlighted. Cataloged like evidence. He never left the ring. He never screamed or packed a bag. He just made sure I'd never forget who held the cards now. He took my silence. My shame. My memory of that night when I felt alive, and buried it under politeness and dinner reservations. He didn't divorce me. He didn't yell. He simply removed the option of escape. And that's worse. Because every morning, I wake up next to the man I betrayed. And I can feel the weight of his knowing in the air. He doesn't need to say it. It's in the way he smiles without warmth, touches me with ceremony instead of want, and locks his phone with a passcode now. He won, and I lost something I can't even name. I still check Caleb's porch sometimes. It's still empty, and I still remember the night he didn't leave, because I don't think I ever really came back. He left quietly, without a fight. Doug stayed, and turned my punishment into permanence.